My name is Robert Bob Harlan, and I'm the man who stood under the church hall's buzzing lights, held up a plain envelope, and told my family and 100 neighbors spooning chili that I had $500,000, and that nobody was going to hustle me into assisted living to get it. The ladle clanged. Jason stared at his shoes. I smiled, not cruel, just certain. But it didn't start there. It started 2 weeks earlier in my small ranch kitchen off Harding Highway in Lima, Ohio. The house smelled like black coffee and lemon oil because I keep Linda's butcher block the way she liked it. I'm 69, a retired machinist who still wakes at 5 and drives a 2008 F-150 that coughs on cold mornings. That evening, Jason came by after a service call, shoulders inside his HVAC jacket, eyes sliding toward his phone. "We ate meatloaf at the wobbly table I keep promising to fix. Dad," he said, tapping his fork. "What have you really got for retirement?" "Enough," I said, cutting neat slices. "Bills are paid. I'm fine." "I mean numbers." He tried for a chuckle that didn't stick. "Like 102. On the hutch behind him is a picture of Linda at Mommy Bay in a big hat, squinting at me for telling the same joke twice. I looked at her, not him, and heard her voice. "Don't pick a fight. Listen first." So I listened to his heel bouncing to the breath, catch to the hush when the furnace fan clicked off. "About 100, I said, like I had to pull the figure out by the tail. More or less. Relief crossed his face, and then something harder, the way a man checks studs before he mounts a shelf. "That's okay," he said. "Brooks folks know people. They can help you move money tax stuff. They've got this family LLC. Smart." "Tax stuff," I said, pouring iced tea. He nodded too hard. "We could swing by this weekend just to talk. They'll bring dessert." "Dessert is powerful," I said. "Tell them to come." When he left, I rinsed the plates and leaned on the counter until steam fogged my glasses. Outside, a semi droned on I-75. On the fridge, a magnet from Arnie's Diner held a postcard from Emily in Findlay. "Dad, take your blood pressure pills." I read it again and set it back. They came the next afternoon in a leased SUV that smelled like dealership cleaner rolling up too fast and braking late. Leonard Carver Lenny stepped out in a navy jacket and tan loafers you don't wear to a job site. His wife Patricia Pat had realtor hair and a smile that measured rooms. They carried a bakery box. Bob Lenny boomed as if we were old pals. "Kelsey's Cookies, best in Franklin County." "Franklin County's a drive," I said, taking the box. "Come in before the coffee cools." Pat swept the living room, Linda's photo, the crocheted Afghan, the neat row of pill bottles. "Such a cozy space," she said. "But upkeep at our age, my goodness. My mom just moved to Sunrise Terrace and keeps saying, 'Why didn't I do this sooner?'" I poured coffee into the good cups with wheat stalks on them. Lenny set a leather folio on the table like a magician placing a top hat. "We're here to talk future," he said. "Smart families plan. Vehicles, family LLCs, opportunities. We've got a flip midstream terrific upside, but there's a timing gap a small private note could bridge. You'd be helping the family and earning a great return." "How small?" I asked. He spread 2 fingers, 100. Pat smiled like the conclusion was mine. "It lines up so perfectly, doesn't it? And once the LLC is signed, your house can be an asset. The tax efficiency is Leonard, you explain it better." "Unlock equity," Lenny said. "You're sitting on good wood, Bob. Why polish floors when you can monetize them?" Outside, sycamore leaves knocked in the wind. I glanced at the doorbell cam's faint blue LED and at the small voice recorder in my shirt pocket, the kind nobody notices because nobody thinks Grandpa records. For a second, I wanted to be wrong about these people. "I'm slow with numbers," I said, squinting behind my glasses the way old men do when they want to be underestimated. "Bigger fonts would help." Pat produced an investment agreement with generous margins and bullet points that said important but meant empty. Lenny produced a quitclaim deed, just a sample, he said, to show how simple this could be. He spoke in smooth, unfinished sentences like he could talk a knot out of a rope if you gave him time, and a gullible man. "Sunrise Terrace has bingo," Pat added, tapping the pill bottles. "You'd love the community. And the chef, oh my." "Linda cooked," I said. I never got used to chefs. They didn't look at Linda's picture. They looked at the house like a thing to list. I let the silence swell until we had to hear it. Then I said, "I'll think on it. I don't sign things the same day." Lenny's grin tightened half a degree. "Of course, we respect process. Maybe gather again Saturday. Brooke and Jason can come. We'll bring the good printer. The good printer, I said, like that mattered. They left as quickly as they came, the SUV's back end dipping, when Lenny dropped it into reverse. On the porch, wind worried the swing. The doorbell cam's LED winked and went still. The recorder in my pocket was warm from my skin. Inside, I set 2 coffee cups in the sink, lined up the handles, and studied Linda's face until my shoulders loosened. People think planning is spreadsheets. Really, it's listening. If you listen long enough, even nice sentences start telling the truth. I slid their photocopies into a drawer and wrote a short list: Janice Elder Law, recorder's office, Arnie's at 7. Then, I locked the deadbolt and stood at the window watching the porch where the swing has hung empty since the winter Linda left. I smiled small, no teeth, took the bait I said to the quiet, and the house set it back in its soft creaks like an old friend agreeing without words. The morning after the cookies and the leather folio, I was at Arnie's Diner by 7, same booth near the window where the glass gets foggy from the griddle. The place smelled like bacon and dish soap and a hint of bleach that says the night shift tried. Connie poured coffee until it made that little hiss against the lip of the mug. "You look like a man building a birdhouse in his head," she said. "Just figuring where to put the screws," I told her. I spread Lenny's agreement on the Formica, slid my reading glasses down, and pulled out a magnifier I bought at Rite Aid when my hands started refusing tiny screws. Big fonts didn't make it better. The bullet points said family flexibility and legacy, but the lines about control said manager managed, and the manager wasn't me. The sample quitclaim had blanks where my name would go. There's a certain way paper feels when it plans to leave you standing on your own porch with a cardboard box. This felt like that. I finished my eggs and drove downtown to the squat brick building near the county courthouse where small lawyers keep the lights on. The hallway carpet had that office smell: copy toner, old coffee, cheap lemon cleaner. On the glass door, Janice Morales Elder Law. Inside a tidy desk, 2 flags in the corner and a frame that said U.S. Army JAG Corps. Janice was mid-50s, dark hair and a practical knot eyes that didn't waste movement. She shook my hand like a person who prefers facts to speeches. "What brings you in, Mr. Harlan?" "Bob," I said, settling into a chair. "My son's in-laws brought cookies and a quitclaim deed. I told my boy I had about $100 grand. I took a breath. That wasn't true." She waited. "I have 5 times that I said. And if I say 500 out loud, I think people start hearing a slot machine." "Good choice," she said without blinking. "Let's build a fence." I told her about Lenny, about Pat's talk of Sunrise Terrace, about the family LLC. I laid the papers on her desk. She read the way a machinist reads a tolerance chart. No drama, just degrees. "First," she said, tapping the sample deed, "never sign a quitclaim that moves your house to anything you don't control. Second, a family LLC managed by anyone but you is not family. It's a siphon." She reached for a yellow pad. "We set up a revocable living trust in your name. We put the house in it. Update your will, revoke the old one, so there's no confusion floating around. Durable power of attorney. Who do you trust to make decisions if you're down with the flu or worse?" "My daughter," I said. "Emily. She's a school nurse in Findlay. She knows what a chart is." "Emily gets POA," Janice said. "Healthcare directives too. Then we update beneficiaries. Do you help the grandkids?" I nodded. 529, small, but I add when I can. "We'll make that automatic," she said. "Also, since you told the in-laws 100 or let's open a decoy account with 100. If they demand proof, you show it and nothing else." "Decoy," I said, liking the calm of the word, "like a duck you don't mind someone shooting at." She smiled with half her face. Now the thing nobody likes to think about. Guardianship by ambush is real. Somebody takes you to a memory screening, pulls a doctor into a quick signature in a hospital hallway, then waves it at a judge. You need a baseline capacity letter on file preemptively. You have a doctor who does that. "Your doctor," she said. "It should be someone who's seen you for years. Ask for a cognitive evaluation and a letter stating you understand your finances and can make decisions. Keep originals here and a copy at home." We spent 2 hours drawing boxes around my life. She called in her paralegal to witness signatures. The printer made that homey slap I've always liked. We signed the trust. We retitled the house to the trust. The line that used to say Robert Harlan now said Harlan Family Trust, Robert Harlan Trustee. I initialed until my hand cramped. She slid fresh POA papers across the desk for Emily. We filled beneficiary forms for the grandkids' plans. No speeches, just screws where screws belong. When I leave here, I said, flexing my fingers, I go to the credit union. Lima Community, she said, already filling a deposit slip template. Ask for a free checking with online access and a basic savings. Put the 100 there. The rest stays where it is. Do not consolidate. The easiest money to steal is tidy money. We made copies. She gave me a slim fireproof bag for originals until I could buy a safe. She handed me a list with crisp boxes to check Dr. Patel appointment safe neighbor you trust in case of unexpected hospitalization. Edna Brewer, I said. Next door. She waters my peonies when I forget. Tell Edna where the spare key is, Janice said, and tell only Edna. I drove to Mercy Health St. Rita's to book a slot with Dr. Reena Patel. The receptionist wore scrubs with tiny winter cardinals and said they could get me in Friday for a Montreal cognitive assessment, plus a note for my file. I thanked her, and because I am that man, now wrote the time twice on the appointment card and on the back of my hand. At Lima Community Credit Union, the lobby smelled like ballpoint ink and winter coats. A kid named Trevor with a soft mustache walked me through the screens and didn't blink when I said I wanted exactly 100,000 in one place and exactly nowhere else. He offered me a free calendar with pictures of barns. The barns looked airbrushed. I took it anyway. He printed me a balance letter. Some people like to see proof, he said, as if he knew all about in-laws. On my way home, I stopped at Rural King and bought a fireproof safe that made the clerk grunt when he lifted it. At home, I bolted it to the floor in the hall closet, wiped the sweat off my temples with Linda's old tea towel, and tucked the trust, the POA, and the fresh account documents inside. I wrote Edna in neat block letters on an envelope and put a spare key inside. Then I walked next door. Edna opened the door with her cat wrapped around her ankles like fog. "You look serious," she said. "I am," I said. "If a day ever comes when somebody tries to rush me to sign something I don't understand, you call Emily and you call Janice." I handed her the envelope. "If I'm at St. Rita's, use that." "I'll do it," she said, voice steady, "and I'll bring you Jell-O." Back home, I made a small pile on the kitchen table, the balance letter, 2 identical USB sticks, a printed page of timestamps from the doorbell-cam with Pat's voice on 3 clips and Lenny's on 2, and a sticky note that said, "Keep your hands steady." My phone buzzed. "Jason Brooks' parents can meet Saturday. Can you have the 100K ready?" There was a ... then nothing then. They just want to help Dad. I stared at the screen until it went black and showed my own face. If I let my jaw set, I looked like every stubborn old guy who ever refused help and fell off a ladder. That wasn't the story I wanted told about me. I typed, "Let's talk after church." I put the phone down, turned on the dehumidifier in the basement, and walked past shelves that still hold Linda's canning jars with labels in her tidy hand. Dill 2016, peach 2017. I breathed the cool concrete smell and listened to the hum of the house. We think big moments arrive with horns and banners. My experience is they arrive as a list and a walk to a neighbor's door.
Upstairs, the late sun slanted through the sycamore and made coins of light on the butcher block. I set my palm on the wood until it warmed. Then I opened a fresh spiral notebook and wrote at the top, in block letters, the way a shop foreman would chalk a job: Trust done. Credit union done. Dr. Patel Friday. Edna done. I clicked the doorbell-cam app and watched a grainy clip from yesterday. Pat's voice drifted through my kitchen again. "You'd love the community. The chef, oh my." I let it play twice. Then I copied it to both USBs and put one in the safe, the other in my pocket. I turned off the kitchen light and stood there a minute, letting the dark come on. "You see, Lynn," I said into the quiet room, "I'm not picking a fight. I'm building a fence." Thursday was gray and windy. I parked by the courthouse and waited outside the Allen County Recorder's office until the door clicked at 8:30. Inside was quiet paper shoes on tile. A clerk named Missy Bookish Kind asked what I needed. "Contractor lines," I said, "on Carver home renovations, and any judgments with Leonard or Patricia Carver." She typed, "2 mechanics liens and a small claims judgment. Want to view the images?" At a public terminal, the mouse polished by 1,000 hands, I click through scans stamped with the county seal. Mechanics, line, Doc 2 2023, 1145 Midwest Drywall Supply versus Carver Home Renovations, $18,642. Earlier, Lion, 2220771 Buckeye Tool Rentals versus Same, $6,980. Then a municipal judgment with Leonard's name. I printed copies $1 a page. The printer went, ha ha chunk, like the press at the shop. Missy stapled the stacks. You want certified copies? Regular will do, I said. Truth doesn't need ribbon. She smiled. Anything else? If a man brings cookies and a quitclaim deed in the same week, I asked, what order would you eat them? Cookies first, she said. Deeds never. I labeled a manila envelope Carver Lines and headed to Haller's Hardware. Haller's is long and narrow and smells like rope and fertilizer. A bell rang like a bicycle when I pushed the door. Morning Bob, said a clerk with a shaved head and a tape measure on his pocket. His tag said Kyle, but we all call him Sparky. Got a minute, I asked, buying 2 boxes of wood screws I don't need. For you, I got 9, he said. You ever do business with Carver Home Renovations? He rolled his eyes. We extended them a house account last spring. Leonard's a handshaker. His checks are joggers, always catching up. Lowering his voice. Great pitch. Family helps family. Then somebody's aunt ends up with a maxed HELOC and a shed full of returns. Anybody else mention them? Old Roy at the VFW, he said. Co-signed for a nephew who worked with Lenny. Sold his base boat. Don't be Roy. I walked 2 blocks to the VFW. The post smells like beer and wood and mop water. Earl wasn't there yet, but a man with hands like fence posts warmed a coffee. You Roy, I asked. He looked up through eyebrows that would survive a prairie fire. Depends who's asking. Bob Harlan, Linda's husband. His face softened. Condolences. She baked a cherry pie that could fix a man. He nodded. Yeah, I co-signed. Paper looked clean until it didn't. I paid to avoid court. He stared into the cup. Still got the oar, but no boat. Thank you, I said. Be louder than me, he said. On Main, I stopped at St. Matthew's to drop a box of screws for the maintenance closet and a check for the boiler fund. The hall was set for the youth spaghetti supper. On the bulletin board, Rotary plus Chili and Pie Night next Hiku 6:30, Community Spotlight. At the bottom, local entrepreneurs welcome to present. See Pastor Walt. I stood there and heard Linda in my head. A microphone is just a door you open. I tore off one of the tabs with Walt's number. In the truck, I called Janice. Tell me you found what I think you found, she said. Lien, Gakr 2-23, 1145 and Nakan 2-22, Zizo 771, I said. Judgment against Leonard. Also Rotary Chili and Pie Night next Thursday. Community Spotlight. If the Carvers want my 100, let them pitch where the lights are bright. That's tidy, she said. Paper rustled. I'll draft a 1-page promissory note collateral under 72% loan-to-value personal guarantees from both clear repayment schedule default triggers and a clause banning any transfer of your deed. You don't need them to sign. You only have to offer it.
Offer it and let them say no out loud, I said. Exactly. At the chili table, ask short questions with verbs. Who pulled the permit? Who was the last lender and did they get paid? What is the lien position? Verbs, I said. I dialed Pastor Walt. I hear there's a community spotlight slot next Thursday. 3 10-minute slots, he said. You want one? Not me, I said. A couple I know want to present a family investment opportunity. He made a pastoral sound that means I'll let the room teach. If it's above board, I'm glad to offer the space. Keep it civil. I'm the civilest man you know, I said. He chuckled. Bob. I texted Lenny thinking about the full 100. Could you and Pat present next Thursday at St. Matthew's Chili and Pie Night 10 minutes? Show your plan and timeline. I'll bring a cashier's check if I like what I hear. He replied in 30 seconds with a thumbs up, then love the transparency. We'll make you proud, big guy. He added a flexed bicep emoji. I drove home the long way, the river, the corner where Linda wore that hat, the cemetery where the mums try and the marble doesn't. At the kitchen table, I laid out the envelope, my notebook, and a sheet titled Questions. Under it I wrote, Permits, liens, last investor paid, collateral repayment. Why me? I slid Janice's card into my shirt pocket and set 2 USB sticks on the notebook. Then I boiled a potato and ate it with butter. My phone buzzed. Jason Great Brooks folks are excited. This is going to be good for everyone. I typed and erased 3 replies. I sent good plans survive sunlight. He sent a question mark. At dusk, I walked my block the slow circuit old men make to check the neighborhood without looking nosy. Edna waved from her porch. The air had that first bite chill. I stood under the church's low eaves and looked through the dark glass at the empty hall, imagining steam rising from chili and neighbors bent over styrofoam bowls, their listening turning the room bright. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt like a man who'd laid a plank across a ditch and hoped it would hold. I went home, sharpened a carpenter's pencil with my pocket knife, and underlined the word why until the wood creaked. Friday. I kept my appointment with Dr. Reena Patel at St. Rita's. The waiting room smelled like sanitizer and winter coats. Dr. Patel wore a tea-colored sweater and carried a clipboard. She's known me years, stitches cholesterol that flew in 2013 when Linda made me sip ginger ale. We'll do a quick cognitive check, she said. It's dull. That's how you know it works. 5 words to remember. A clock face at 10 past 11, subtract by sevens, copy a fussy little shape. Monthtown governor. She watched steady the way a toolmaker watches a lathe. When we finished, she typed on letterhead, Robert Harlan demonstrates intact understanding and ability to manage personal finances and medical decisions. Baseline recorded. If anyone tries the hallway signature trick, she said, handing it over, show them this and my number. I'll keep it next to my deer license, I said. Back in the truck, I called Pastor Walt to confirm Thursday's chili and pie night. One more favor, I said. Could Adult Protective Services set up a small information table by the coffee? No announcements, just brochures. I like resources, not fireworks, he said. I'll make room. At the county office, a woman named Maria answered on the second ring. I told her straight, some folks around here sell family when they mean leverage. We don't do confrontations, she said, but we can show up with brochures and 2 staff. That's all I want, I said. I'll see you by the missions board. Bring an appetite. Saturday. I asked Jason and Brooke to meet me at the Bluebird Diner. The place smelled like pancakes and mop water. I chose the corner booth with Brick at my back and sightlines on the room. Earl slipped into the next booth with a newspaper held too high. We didn't nod. Brooke arrived in realtor black with a tote big enough for a small dog. Jason wore a ball cap in worry. She hugged me like a closing. We love that you're taking this seriously, she said, sliding in. It's going to be easier for you. For me, I said. Tell me the plan, short sentences. She leaned forward. The family LLC holds assets. If we transfer your deed. Verbs, I said. We put your house in the LLC, she said. Then Mom lists it. You move to Sunrise. We invest the proceeds. You get a monthly stipend. Jason's heel thumped the bench. Brooke. What he asked. Smile, teeth, confidence. Houses your size on your street go pending in 48 hours. Right now, a clean ranch is like a golden ticket. Stipend, I said, rolling the word like a pebble. It's smart, she said. You're sitting on dead equity. I looked at my fork. One tine had a ding where some kid jammed it in a disposal. I like my roof where it sits, I said. It doesn't slosh. Jason rubbed his forehead. Dad, we're trying to help. I know you are, I said, and let the silence work. I paid the check before he could reach. They stood. At the door, Brooke turned. Thursday, do you want us to bring the printer? I've already got the paper, I said. Earl waited a minute, then slid into my booth. He set his paper down and took off his readers. Heard the whole thing, he said. I can swear to it on my mother's Bible. I'm not after a courtroom, I said. Just a room. You'll have it, he said. I'll sit where I can reach a microphone if folks start braying. At home, I opened the safe and laid things on the table like tools before a job. Dr. Patel's letter, the trust certificate, copies of liens, Urshker 2023-1145 and the Nauticry 2022 Zirco 71, the small claims judgment, the credit union's proof of funds letter with Trevor's tidy signature, Janice's one-page promissory note collateral under 72% loan-to-value personal guarantees from both Carvers, a clear schedule, a ban on any transfer of my deed. I added printed screenshots of texts and a list titled Questions in Block Letters. I called Janice. They said, "List it out loud," I told her. "That's useful," she said. "If anyone asks why you're cautious, you show the liens in the exact sentence they said. Offer your note. If they refuse collateral in front of neighbors, the room will teach." That's the hope, I said. At church, I found Tyler, the high school kid who knows every chord by name. 3 doorbell clips, I said. No sound until I nod. He pushed hair off his forehead. Easy. We tested the little projector on the far wall above a folding table of hymnals. The video was grainy but clear enough. Pat's voice sang, "Sunrise before winter." Tyler didn't comment. He didn't need to. That evening, Emily drove down from Findlay. We ate tomato soup and crackers at my wobbly table. She watched my face the way Linda used to when I'd say I was fine. "You look steady," she said. "But I'll ask anyway, are you building something you can live inside or something you'll be stuck in alone?" "A fence," I said, "not a bunker." "Leave a gate," she said. "There's a gate," I said. "It has hinges." I showed her the Stack Patel's letter, the trust, the liens, the note, the proof of funds. I read lines out loud, not for her, for me. Words sound different in the air. They felt like beams sliding into place. Before bed, I walked over to the fellowship hall. It smelled like pine sol and dust that had made its peace. I set a plain canvas bag, papers, USB's notebook on the first row of chairs and sat beside it. I set my palm on it. The bag didn't weigh much, but it felt like a hammer with its head wrapped so it wouldn't mar the wood. "Keep my voice calm," I said to the empty room. "Keep my hands open." On the way out, I paused by the missions board where Maria's brochures would fan like hymnals. I pictured neighbors sliding one into a coat pocket without looking around. Back on my porch, I touched the swing. The chain made its small old sound. I locked the deadbolt and slept. By Thursday evening, the fellowship hall smelled like 20 kinds of chili. Steam from the coffee urn fogged the low windows. The American Legion flag leaned on its stand. The pie table listed toward apple. Tyler taped down cords with blue painter's tape and gave me a thumbs up from the AV nest. Pastor Walt arranged hymnals into a lectern and prayed, "Short, keep tempers cool, keep spoons steady." Neighbors filled the folding chairs, teachers, the barber from Maine, young families with diaper bags. I spotted Missy from the recorder's office, and near the back the assistant county prosecutor in fleece with a plate like a second Bible. Against the far wall, Maria from Adult Protective Services set a modest stack of brochures by the coffee plain white government font, the color of sober help. The Carvers arrived in their leased SUV, headlights glaring through the glass. Lenny hauled a laptop and a lunch pail projector. Pat carried glossy folders. Brooke came in bright. Jason trailed with his cap in his hands. Lenny clapped my shoulder. "Ready to build a legacy, Bob?" "Ready to build something," I said. We ate first, because Lutherans know the order of battle. I took mine mild, sat near the aisle, and let spoons and talk warm the room. Pastor rang a bell. "Welcome to chili and pie night and our community spotlight. First up, Carver home renovations with a family investment opportunity. 10 minutes, then Q&A. Lenny stepped into the light like a man walking a dock he's tested. He clicked to a slide with a stock photo of a smiling couple in Keys. Family, he began, palms open, is the best partnership. We've structured a family LLC to capture upside in local housing responsibly. Click tax positioning, click legacy, click speed. Pat handed out folders, soft karate chop precise. We've identified a midstream flip with room for a small time-limited note, she said. Given rates, we're offering an excellent return to a private family participant. I raised my hand. Pastor nodded. Who pulled the permit on the midstream flip? I asked, voice plain as if ordering drywall. Lenny smiled too wide. Permits are pending. The city knows us. Who was your last private lender and did they get paid? We rotate family capital, he said, very relationship-driven. Lien position. He flicked to a chart of arrows. Positioning is flexible within the LLC. Flexible, the way Jell-O is flexible, I said, and a few people snorted. I slid a single page onto the lectern. Janice's one-page promissory note. If you want my 100, this is the paper. Collateralized under 72% loan-to-value by real property, you own personal guarantees by both of you, fixed repayment schedule, and no transfer of my deed under any circumstance. Pat's smile turned to glass. We don't put our home on the line for a little community loan. Then you're not investing, I said. You're reaching. Silence found the corners of the room. Somewhere a spoon stopped midair. For neighbors who like numbers, I said, lifting a stapled set, I checked the Allen County recorder. Hello, Missy. There's a mechanic's lien. 2023 1145 against Carver Home Renovations for $18,642. Another, your 2022 771 for $6,980. And a small claims judgment naming Leonard. I brought extras. They're not certified. Truth doesn't need ribbon. Lenny made a noise he probably thought was dignified. This is defamation. It's public record, I said. Defamation needs a falsehood. I only brought paper. He tried to laugh. So we've had disputes. Every contractor does. Every contractor doesn't ask a widower to move his deed into a family LLC. He doesn't manage, I said. Jason shifted like the floor pitched. Brooke's eyes went bright and brittle. This is unnecessary, she said. You invited us. You said you trusted us. I said I'd listen, I said. Now everyone else can. I looked to Tyler. He caught the nod. The projector blinked and the hall quieted one click more. The doorbell cam video filled the wall, my porch, their glossy shoes, Pat's voice as clean as if the mic sat at her throat. Sign the quitclaim. We'll get him into sunrise before winter. In the front row, Edna's mouth made a small circle around Winter. Next slide, a screenshot of a text on Jason's phone, my name above in gray, his in blue. When deed's in the LLC, we can HELOC it fast. Jason closed his eyes. A woman took her husband's hand. We said possibilities, Brooke whispered. I let the projector hum a beat. Then I turned to the room. I'm not here to call anybody a thief, I said. I'm here to do in front of witnesses what too many people do alone. Ask what you're signing. Ask who gets paid first. Ask why urgent sounds so much like hungry. Lenny stepped forward, heat in his cheeks. We came in good faith. This is a setup. No, I said. This is a mirror. It's not my fault what it shows. Pat snapped her folder shut like a trap that missed. We don't have to stand for this, she said. Leonard, let's go. Please do, a voice said from the back, Earl stepping into sight, one big palm open. He didn't take the lectern. Folks, if any of this has you worried for a parent or yourself, there's an adult protective services table by the coffee. Nobody's accusing anybody tonight. If you need a brochure, take one. If you need a name, Maria's got a card. The room didn't erupt. It shifted like a boat settling after a wake. People glanced toward the brochures, small white lifeboats by styrofoam cups. Pastor lifted his hand. Questions for the presenters, he said, gentle. Short, please. I held Janice's note where Lenny could see the words again. He looked at it like a man eyeing an honest scale. For a second, I thought he might try to put a finger on the pan. Then he shook his head short and hard, the way a sore loser does when he decides the ref's blind. Then we'll pass, he said. That's your answer, I said, and the room heard it as I did, not to me, to the mirror. Pastor let the quiet settle, then looked at me. Bobby said, did you bring anything else for the room? I stood feeling the bone-true ache in my knees and the steadiness in my hands. Just a minute, I said. And then the pies can do the talking. I lifted a plain envelope, the same one I'd been living toward for 2 weeks. The paper rasped soft against my fingers. I told my son I had about $100,000, I said, voice even. That was not true. A hum ran through the room. The coffee urn hissed like it had something to add. I said 100, I went on, because when you say 500,000 people stop hearing you and start hearing a slot machine. The truth is, I have $500,000 saved the Slowway overtime coupons and coffee that tastes like work. Jason blinked like he'd been splashed. Brooke stared at the floor as if a loose nail could save her. Lenny shifted his weight to his good shoe and made a show of not being impressed. I didn't lie to trick anybody, I said. I lied to measure the weather. I wanted to know if I had people or prospectors, so I set out a little flag and watched who chased it. I held up a single sheet, the trust certificate. Also, the house isn't mine to toss around anymore. It belongs to the Harlan Family Trust. I'm trustee. I can't shove it into anybody's LLC with a happy signature and a cookie. There are rules. I like rules. The assistant county prosecutor stopped eating pie. He didn't say a word, just lifted his phone and took a photo of the screen with the lien numbers, then the trust header. He tucked the phone away like any other neighbor. Maria from Adult Protective Services raised a hand halfway. Just as a resource, she said, standing beside her little brochure island, if anyone here has questions about undue influence guardianship or how to help a relative without handing away the farm, we can talk after. We don't intervene without someone asking. Thank you, I said to her and meant it. I put the envelope on the lectern, smoothed it the way Linda used to smooth a recipe card. This is what I'm doing. $200,000 will go to the community college as the Linda Harlan Nursing Scholarship because Linda held strangers' hands in the worst nights of their lives, and I want more hands like that in this county. $150,000 to Habitat for Humanity here in Allen County because I believe in roofs that don't slosh and front steps your grandkid can sit on with chalk. $100,000 gets split into 529 plans for my grandkids' quiet money that grows while the grown-ups argue. I took a breath. It wasn't for effect. It was to keep my voice from wobbling when I said the last part. $50,000 goes into a small trust for my son Jason. It's there when he can show 1 year, 12 months, not 12, promises of steady, respectful contact. No asks. He'll see a counselor and I'll go with him if he wants. My attorney will be trustee. If he does that, the gate swings. If he doesn't, the money takes a nap forever. Jason's jaw moved, but what came out was a boy's sound. Dad, he said, soft. I nodded. Son. Lenny scoffed. So you dress us down to feel big, then play Mr. Philanthropy. This is theater. No, I said. This is me saying what the money's for, so it quits trying to climb into every conversation. Pat's smile had died a while ago. You blindsided us, she said. You invited us to present, and then you humiliated us. I invited you to present, I said. And I asked what you'd put up when you wanted me to put up everything. You answered. The room heard you. She took a step toward me, then saw Earl Broad as a doorframe turn a half-inch. She stopped. We're leaving, she said, and looked to Brooke. Come. Brooke dabbed at her eyes and shook her head a fraction, as if she'd just now realized the room had windows. Lenny gathered cords like he was yanking weeds. They made it 3 steps before he pivoted and jabbed a finger in the air. You'll hear from a lawyer, he said. You already are, I said. She writes shorter than you talk. A laugh popped in the back like a cork, then died respectful. The assistant prosecutor, still saying nothing official, set his plate on a chair and handed Maria a couple of empty spots on her table for the extra lien printouts I'd brought. She fanned them so folks could take one without a parade. Jason stood in place like a man whose boat just drifted off the hitch. You set me up, he said, not loud. You made me look like... I set up a mirror, I said, just as not loud. I looked in it too. I didn't like everything I saw, but I'm the one who can change my face. His mouth worked. He looked at the 529 line on my notes, then at Emily along the wall, then down at his own cap. He put the cap on, then took it off again. He looked like my boy at 9 when he broke the garage window and cleaned up the glass before coming to tell me bleeding. I turned back to the room. I'm not the judge of anybody's family, I said. I'm just a man who believes 2 simple things. Money's a tool, family's a promise. If you confuse the 2, you lose both. It wasn't a line I'd practiced. It was what had been sitting on my tongue for a month, waiting for air. The room took it in like the first lungful after a cold walk. Pastor Walt stepped up not to preach. Thank you, Bob, he said, and his hand sat on my shoulder for a second, like a weight that made me steadier, not heavier. We'll take 2 minutes of quiet. Then folks can move toward pies and the APS table if they wish. Remember our rules: short questions, soft voices. We didn't need the quiet. The sound started by itself, a small clapping in the back row where Missy sat with a styrofoam cup, then more hands, then more. It wasn't a standing ovation like on TV. It was the sound of 50-some regular people in a church hall agreeing out loud that a thing had been said true. I didn't bow. I didn't cry. I just nodded once and looked down at my hands. They were the hands I've had since 15, grease-scarred, freckled square. They looked like they still knew what a wrench was for. Emily slipped to my side and squeezed my elbow. Gates still open, she whispered. On hinges, I said. Maria caught my eye and gave a professional nod. The assistant prosecutor found his pie again. Lenny and Pat pushed through the door into the early dark where a wind had picked up, and the SUV's headlights made a shaky tunnel across the gravel. Jason didn't follow them right away. I folded the trust certificate once and put it back in the envelope. I laid the envelope in the canvas bag. The bag felt lighter like a hammer when the nail's already home. "All right," Pastor said with a smile that made the room breathe again. "Let's eat." We ate. The room softened the way rooms do when hot food lands and decisions stop needing to be made. People drifted past me with plates and small squeezes of the elbow. Missy from the recorder's office pressed a napkin into my hand because my coffee had found its way to my thumb. Maria's brochures went steadily one by one, the way hymnals go when a funeral fills the pews and people suddenly remember the words. The assistant prosecutor ate his pie like a civilian. Lenny and Pat were gone. Jason wasn't. He stood at the edge of the funnel cake line like a man who couldn't remember why he'd come to that county fair. He looked smaller than his jacket. Emily watched him without staring the way nurses do when they're waiting for a patient to find the chair. I ladled chili into a styrofoam bowl and handed it to him like a peace pipe from some quieter tribe. "Eat," I said. "Food puts railings back on the stairs." I made a mess, he said, barely above the fan noise. He took the bowl with both hands. I got greedy. "Greed talks like urgency," I said. "You hear it ringing, you think it's the doorbell. Half the time it's the fire alarm." "Is the gate really there?" he asked, voice getting younger. "It's on hinges," I said. "Hinges squeak, but they work if you oil them." "We didn't fix anything then. You don't weld bent steel with a butter knife." We ate in the hum of the hall. I took home 2 triangles of pie wrapped in paper and paid the kid at the door for a half pint of somebody's youth group fundraiser maple syrup, because people ought to go home with something sweet after they've had to think hard. The carver's fallout didn't arrive as fireworks. It seeped like December through a window you forgot to caulk. A week later, I heard Rotary had reconsidered a sponsorship, not with a speech, but with a missing banner. Yelp didn't explode. It mumbled. Words like communication issues and unexpected change orders began to pile like wet leaves. At Howler's, Sparky rang me up for 2 boxes of drywall screws I maybe wouldn't use and said boats still sold, but Roy smiled last night for no reason. I nodded and put the screws on a shelf beside Linda's jars where keeping things you might need someday is a kind of prayer. It got cold fast. The sycamore went from coins to hands to nothing. One Saturday, Jason showed up with a bag of salt and a coil of weather stripping. He didn't announce himself. He started at the back door where the wind slides its fingers first and worked his way forward. We didn't talk much. The quiet between us had different weight than before. It wasn't empty. It was a thing being built with the tools we still had. At lunch, we ate chili straight from the pot, standing with spoons, and he asked if I thought counseling was a punishment. "It's a tool," I said, "like a level. It doesn't make your wall. It tells you if your wall is falling while you're telling yourself it's fine." He nodded long and slow, like a man noticing something not new and not small. He put his phone on the counter face down. It didn't buzz. Or if it did, neither of us looked toward it. On a Tuesday, the mailman left a fat envelope from the community college. Inside was a thank you under a letterhead with an oak tree on it and a second sheet with handwriting that leaned forward like it was trying to shake your hand. "Dear Mr. Harlan, I'm 34, a mother of 1, and doing my LPN at night because my boy's asthma made me learn what a pulse ox is. I work at the grocery mornings. I think about quitting every Thursday at 3. I won't now. You named this for your wife. I will try to be like your wife. Love, Tessa." I stood at the sink and held that paper long enough to make it warm. I brought the letter to St. Matthew's on Wednesday night, slid it into a plastic sleeve the way people used to save baseball cards, and asked Pastor if we could pin it on the corkboard by the coffee pot. Right next to the boiler fund, I said, "Let folks see what heat can do when it rides around in a person." He laughed out loud, then turned careful and tacked it up straight. I saw 3 people stop to read it that night, and one of them dabbed at an eye as if a bit of the cork had found it. Emily called most evenings not to pick at stitches but to check the bandage. She has her mother's voice when she's trying not to cry and failing politely. "You sound lighter," she said once, "like somebody took a duffel bag off your shoulder." I told her I'd moved my own hand off the strap. We made a plan to drive to the cemetery with Mums when the ground went soft enough again. A plan is half an answer. The other half is showing up. Janice didn't crow. She sent a postcard with a dog that looked like it had thoughts. "Call me if anyone waves a form under your nose," she wrote. "Otherwise, enjoy the boring." I pinned it to the fridge under the Arnie's magnet. Boring is a lake without whitecaps. People write songs about storms. They build houses by quiet water. Christmas lights went up on the block one week and down the next. I put one string around the porch, then another, then decided a third would be the kind of reaching I'd been warning myself about. On a thawed afternoon, my granddaughter chalked a hopscotch on the walk numbers, leaning like they'd had a long week. Jason watched from the porch with his hands in his pockets, then sat on the top step, then slid down and hopped once twice, landing on 9 with a little of the way old men do when good sense doesn't check in first. He looked up at me. "You still mad?" he asked. I thought about words that like to be said because they bring applause. Then I thought about the quiet kind that get the work done. "I'm still your dad," I said. "Being mad is part of the job. So is letting it go when your kid is trying." He nodded, and for a beat the air felt the way it does in late February when the wind circles the lake and remembers there are softer places to be. He didn't ask for money. I didn't offer any. He asked if we could meet this guy named Tom who does counseling over by the old Sears. I said I'd put clean jeans on and drive. Later, when the house had gone back to its little noises, fridge tick register, hush the way an old floor says hello when you cross it at 2 in the morning, I took Linda's photo off the hutch, wiped the frame with the corner of my sleeve, and told her the thing I should have told her sooner when we were still the kind of married that gets to plan. "I will use the tools you left me the way you used yours. Keep the soup warm. Keep the door locked. Keep a key with a neighbor who knows your cat's name and your preferred Jell-O flavor. When you need to say a thing true, stand where people can hear you and say it once. If any of this sounds like your house, if you recognize the voice that says hurry or the folder that says family while it reaches for your deed, there are people who will hand you a brochure and not a promise. Ask a clerk for a copy. Ask your doctor for a letter. Call your daughter if she's the one who reads charts. Tell your son you want him not his ideas about your equity. Tell your church to make more chili next year. And if this story gave you a handrail in a place you thought you had to step over in the dark, tell somebody who needs a handrail where you found it. There's room on this porch. The light's on.